Hey guys, Benjamin Slider. This was Strategic Economist, as you've probably seen. The YouTube channel is now called Christians in Cryptocurrency. About a year and a half ago, I started a company called Christians in Cryptocurrency, and when money came into the perception with, generally speaking, with other people and Christian, it didn't sit well. The fangs came out, and there was a lot of scrutiny, and we were scrutinized for that. I changed the name to Christians in Cryptocurrency because today I filed a LLC in the state of Florida for Christians and cryptocurrency, because I am a Christian. I'd probably say I'm a Christian Jew. And I want to get into that. I have one of the most important discoveries since the inception of Bitcoin and blockchain. I found this just a couple days ago. If you please bear with me through this video, I believe that the revelation I received through prayer from Jesus Christ, I believe that this will be one of the most important discoveries to ever take place since blockchain being invented and the start of Bitcoin as the first for the next 50, 100 years that we build on blockchain, because that's exactly what will continue to happen no matter what. Before I get into that, something I never put out publicly from several years ago, and I want to briefly. About 3 years ago, I had my 4 years ago, I had my own personal YouTube. And at the time I was doing credit repair. I was on YouTube and I was helping others with their credit to develop the product, and that's a whole nother story. But I was scrolling through YouTube one day and I found a group of guys, and they had a YouTube channel for crypto viewing. This group, I started posting negative comments in their YouTube feed, which isn't funny and wasn't respectful looking back now. I ended up meeting with them and talking with them, and after quite a few talks, these guys were generally, overall speaking, they're pretty nice, they're decent guys. So I kept looking into meeting with them. I met with one of the owners, which lives here locally, for lunch, and this isn't geared towards them as much as it is to me. I broke down how I do the research that I do, how I get the information that I do. And it was so complicated. One of the owners said, well, nobody's gonna understand that. I look at different pieces of research and different pieces of information. And finally, when it all comes together, I get this big aha moment. And it's sometimes, I wanna say, like a deja vu, where everybody gets them. You remember into it like, I don't know, 2 seconds or a week. And this is what I was doing. And I was doing it for a long time. They said, well, in regards to how I get my information, I talked about, which I'll get to towards the back of this. I'll get the point across for Bitcoin and blockchain. But they said, well, just tell everybody you're remote viewing, because they're not going to understand the route that you're taking. I've had a lot of time. I've had 3, almost 4 years now to think about all of this. I really, truly believe that people are going to understand this, but I haven't had any sort of way to break down what I do, how I get the information I get, and how I'm able to piece things together like nobody's business. I'm not the best of the best. I'm just some guy that does this for fun as a hobby. What started as a business, and then I turned it into a Telegram group that we got several hundred people at one point, and then we went down, and something happened with the YouTube channel that I had shortly after where it started to get censored. Wasn't putting anything negative out or any bad content, or mostly respectful, geared towards helping others. I'm big on paying it forward. If I spend 20 minutes with somebody, all I ask is that you spend 20 minutes with somebody else to take the information that you gain, that I was able to teach you, and give that to someone else. Don't ask for any money. And so I started this Telegram, and this has been up and going for a few years now, heavily censored and monitored, and it's what it seems like. It could be a computer, but then certain people started being thrown out of our group, and the permissions weren't set for that to happen. So then I realized something's happening where our Telegram's being hacked, the YouTube channel's being hacked, different phones of mine that I would get were being hacked, and I thought, well, maybe if I change the name of the group in Telegram to all these different various names, that would throw them off. I did that for a long time and never came clean as to why I was doing that. And well, here it is. I apologize for changing the names and for not saying who I am and what I'm into from the get-go. I think people can understand, and I think people will understand when I tell you guys. I'm been researching for years now, cryptos and the economy. I've been researching coin market cap. I'm not big into stocks. I like silver and gold somewhat. I'm big into the Bible. I haven't known, it's just a personal issue with myself. I haven't known what route to take, which is the right way. I don't want to do anything the wrong way, so I just keep digging and researching. I finally found the right way. I found how to piece everything together. Several years ago, I talked about the golden ratio and how I was able to derive different pieces of information based off of numbers. Excuse me, I was laughed at for quite a while because I didn't have solid documentation to back up what I'm doing. I have documentation, but I don't know how to explain it and break it down. And this has been the big problem. I believe now I may not get 100% the way I hoped for, because it's better thinking about it until you actually do it. I may not get 100% of it, but I will get very close. I think I'll get my point across in this video, and it may help some of you along the way. I was listening to a guy, it's probably the 5th piece of research that was an actual revelation from prayer. I've been praying this last week, broke down crying. I thought, am I done? Am I not going to be able to continue? Because that's what it feels like, because I try to get new people to come in the group. The invite link doesn't work. The people that I meet out locally, I give them the name of the group after they've installed Telegram, and then it can't be searched. It's a public group, it's supposed to pull right up. Well, on my phone it does, but on other phones it doesn't. So something's wrong, it's really wrong, because other people don't have these issues. I'm friends with other people with Telegrams, and they don't have these issues. So something isn't right. And that was, of course, all after I did a video on YouTube with a lady named Carrie Cassidy. Said remote viewing on the title. And so publicly speaking, I have never been a remote viewer. I never have. I've tried before. When I was 15, I was laying in my parents' pool. I remember I was just laying, and I didn't know anything about this. I never researched any of this. I didn't know that other people out there were even trying to do any of this sort of stuff until I met people that were actually doing it. And in the process, this mosquito I remember the mosquito had bit me. It was probably 5, 6 o'clock. Some mosquito bit me, and I went like this after I was falling asleep on this raft in the pool, and I barely woke up, and then I slowly drifted back to sleep again. And I was thinking about something, and whatever, I don't remember what I was thinking about at the time, but I almost like dreamt of the answer. I was half awake and half asleep in this pool, and I go, oh my gosh. That was probably the first time that remote viewing was a very real thing that I was actually able to do, but I've tried to go back so many times and do that, and I've never been able to, ever. And I'm not capable of doing that. I remember eating lunch here with one of the local owners, and we talked about, he said, how are you doing the things that you're doing? Well, I talked about it, and I told him the different pieces of research, and when I tried to get into the golden ratio, I didn't know how to break down what that really was. There's a video made by Disney called Math Magic Land with Donald Duck. My parents at the time when I was a kid, I had probably watched this hundreds and hundreds of times. And by the time I got older, there's different things that I would see in architecture everywhere, locally, churches and synagogues, and you go to your courthouse, and it's been adopted by mainstream now, and a lot of mainstream is using this thing called the golden ratio, and they don't even know that they're using it. It's been adopted as they like it. And so it's everywhere, almost like the movie Matrix, where you see all the numbers and the coding and these lines, and Neo's looking at just everything, and the walls and everything in front of them. That's all he sees. I don't see exactly numbers, but I know, like for instance, I'm looking at a square, I'm looking at the door now, I know on the square there's 4 separate 90-degree angles. Well, 4 times 9 would be 36, you add a 0. 360 is the circumference of a circle, which equals pi. Pi is 3.1459. And I see this everywhere I look. Everywhere. I see it in news articles that come out online. I see it on Bitcoin Exchange Guide and Cointelegraph and CNN and Bloomberg, and I'll see these numbers that are used. I see Trump in the White House has put this out quite a few times. He talks about, I remember when he was in, he said, I think it was when he did the mother of all bombs, he had sent from 3 warships, he said this on the news, they sent missiles from 3 warships, and it had 72 shots, but there were 6 misses, and which goes down from 72 to 66. So then you have 3 and 66. Well, these numbers are used in the golden ratio, and it's used a ton of times. In numbers, what I ended up finding out along the process is numbers have meanings. I read a quote by Manly P. Hall, which is a 33rd degree Freemason, and he said in the quote, it's very easily searched. All this is, everything I'm going to talk about in this video is 100% public. I can't stress that enough. Nothing's private, nothing's secret. Everything is open source. Everything is either from the golden ratio outside of my life, personal life, but golden ratio, the Bible, or the Torah, which is what we're going to get into, and how it relates to cryptocurrency, because all cryptocurrency is derived 100% from the Torah, which is the language spoken to God, spoken by God on Mount Sinai. God spoke to Moses. I'll get into that here in a minute. You're probably thinking to yourself, what? Yeah, it's that good. And our U.S. Constitution, the First Amendment of the United States Constitution, which I have pulled up here, I will read to you, is protection from law about creating new laws against religion or any religious activities. And I can prove, without a shadow of a doubt, that cryptocurrency, including Bitcoin, which is the beginning blockchain of all blockchains, 20,000 of them now, that they are all coded using the golden ratio, which is God's language that was spoken to Moses on Mount Sinai. And I have the proof. Bear with me. I started seeing all of these. It's amazing. Brad Garlinghouse, Realign as a Christian company, and the Christians will be in perfect alignment with not only the Lord, but the SEC can't touch it. And if all, getting ahead of myself, but it was so exciting when I figured this out. I didn't figure this out. This isn't something that's personally mine. Something I prayed about. It's something that I'll get revelation from. Someone walks up to me and says the exact thing that I just prayed about. That's revelation. There's different kinds of revelation. I watched this video the other day with this guy called Myron, M-Y-R-O-N, Myron Gloden, and he said something in his video. I was like 40 minutes into it, something like that, and he said in the video, God coded when there may have been a Big Bang, and I find this a lot of times where the science is over here, but the science doesn't ever mix the principles that are found in the Bible or the Torah. If I think they would mix them somewhat, they would have a whole piece of the pie that no one has seen, because so many people are either looking over here or they're looking over here. They don't actually bring everything together so that it makes sense and fits in a practical sense. And that's what I've found a way to do using golden ratio. And I found out about the golden ratio, so I'll get to. Myron was talking about God coded the universe through his speaking. And when he had coded the universe, the code that he spoke, he wrote this down, I wrote it down. I'm going to put his video, Myron Gloden's video, in the bottom of the in the description, so you guys can look it up. You don't have to get to more than maybe 3/4 of the video, but I promise you, if you watch it, now his video has absolutely nothing to do with blockchain. I've been studying quantum computing for the last 3 or 4, 5, 6 years, about a couple hours every week trying to understand it better. We had a lady in our group with IBM from a corporate office, and IBM in conjunction with, I'm not going to say what, but crypto. They were developing, I believe they have 6 quantum computers. One of them is pretty close to being finished, and I'm pretty well versed on how the quantum computer works. I went to learning to mine crypto and that sort of arena. I bought a bunch of these Raspberry Pis. I linked them together and I put together, which I was shooting to mine a crypto called Digibyte, or there's a variety of them, but I ended up figuring out along the way that, wait a minute, if I take 50 of these and I string them in sequential order together, that I could end up making a very small supercomputer. Well, what happens when you take these supercomputers that you've made separate, 50, 50, 50, 50, 50, 50, 50. Well, when you put a bunch of supercomputers together, you know what you have? You have a quantum computer. And so about 2 years ago, I made one of the first quantum computers that was working that the public had made. I'm just a public guy. Not trying to show it off, not pitching this to anybody, because I don't care, that thing's gone now, but one of the supervisors of NASA through Goddard Space Flight Command in West Virginia? I think it was West Virginia. He was in the group, and I was friends with him for a little while. We lost touch with each other, but he's a sharp guy, great guy, and he came to me and said, send me your resume. I'm like, what? Which is like a dream come true, but I'm so smart in a lot of areas, and I know I am, but I couldn't put together a resume to save my life. Anyways, in quantum computing, they take the quantum computer and they take the bottom of the computer, and it's the circuit board, or the motherboard of the whole thing. It's the brains of the actual computer itself. It's typically gold or gold plated, and the wires and the circuitry. And anyways, they take this and they drop it down into a temperature controlled climate. And by lowering the temperature, it allows for the computer to read, and what it's reading is a bunch of code, and the code is actually electrons and neutrons. But in order to have that, by having that stabilized environment of the super cold or super chilled, it also promotes conductivity and electricity to go even faster than we can go with it. So one of the things that the computer, it's what the computer is actually reading, is a bunch of electrons and neutrons, which is positive and negative. And those positive and negatives are equal ones and zeros. The electron is a 1 electron is a 1, and a neutron or a negative ion, we said it's a neutron, but it's a 0. So you have 1s and 0s, 1 and 0, and this is how the computer calculates it. And by having it in that super chilled solution, the computer can go even faster. And it can calculate things at, if you took all the computing power of the whole world today, there's something being worked on. It's called artificial general intelligence, and it's a self-thinking, almost conscious computer. It's not conscious, obviously, but the best way to describe it, it'll be its own entity or its own human, so to speak. And this computer would have the thinking capacity of about 10,000 years of productivity for every man, woman, and child on planet Earth, including all computing power. The minute it's invented, it would have about 10,000 years of research that it could self-conduct and do in, we're talking per second. So we're talking about going billions and billions and billions of years out into the future with this quantum computer thinking about new technologies. It can take our previous analytics and data that we currently have, and it's going to create so many new inventions. If we want to have a wormhole or things from Star Trek or Star Wars. Well, that's all right there with that quantum computer. So there is a big deal going on right now between China and the United States for, I'm sure there's other countries, but it's what we heard about in the news. And China created a quantum computer. Well, that's scary because if they reach artificial general intelligence before we do, well, then the first computer that makes that, that'll be the last computer. It'll be the last computer ever invented. That computer will be able to take care of itself. It'll be able to make other robots, like Elon Musk is talking about making a human robot. The quantum computer will be able to make its own robots that will take care of itself. They'll update itself. No need for humans. So it's important that whoever gets a hold of this thing, they're doing it right, and they're doing it the best way they can. So, anyways, without going deeper into that, Myron Gloden put out, when God coded everything, he talked about, here it is, try to do this best I can. I drew this out ahead of time. This is the Hebrew alphabet, and it starts backwards, and so in English we read things this way, but in Hebrew you read things backwards actually. This is the beginning of the Hebrew alphabet, and this stands for Alpha, and this stands for Tav, and the meaning I guess doesn't matter as much as this is the beginning of the Hebrew alphabet, and this is the end of the Hebrew alphabet. And the minute I saw this, when he laid this out, because of my deep research and the years I've studied different cryptocurrencies and blockchains, I saw this and I go, oh my God. And what he had said is that God had literally, when he created this entire earth and universe, he coded the universe. When he put that up, and I saw that, and he said, this was the beginning, and this is the end. I go, quantum computer. Now, people in government and politics and public, like the SEC and Gary Gensler, great guy, I like him, but when you have people that don't have a broad spectrum of information to be able to take all that information and put it together, they're not going to see the full spectrum, so to speak. That's a 1. That's a 1. I'll show you. This is where it gets really good. That's a 1 and that's a 0. And then it hit me. And I go, look at this. 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0. Black, white, up, down, left, right, front, back, A through Z are all 1s and 0s. So language, I don't know if you know this, but all language is derived from numbers. The first language on earth that we know of goes back to ancient Sumerian. It actually goes beyond that. And it was a language based completely on numbers. And back then, the principles and the things that they had in their life and what they had actually used was the golden ratio. That golden ratio, if I hadn't studied these different areas, I would have never pieced this together and seen this. And so it gets into the talk. Let me pull up here because this gets even better. I also studied law. I took the Florida bar exam in the state of Florida twice. A couple years ago, passed it with flying colors. I'm not an attorney. I got kids. I can't go back to school. So I'm like, damn. The meaning at which the Hebrew, the alpha and the tav is where we get in English alphabet, which you have A to Z, which can also be classified as a 1 and a 0. This gets good. The meaning of Torah. So the Torah was created based off of the language that was spoke by God. The language that was spoke by God to Moses, let me read this to you. The meaning of Torah is often restricted to signify the first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible, Old Testament, also called the Law of the Pentateuch. In Christianity, these are the books traditionally ascribed to Moses, the recipient of the original revelation from God on Mount Sinai. So the language that was spoken by the creator of this universe, God, to Moses on Mount Sinai was the Hebrew language. And the Hebrew language can be broken down into a number system. That number system, which goes throughout our entire universe, it's spread out in our architecture, our synagogues, our churches. It's found in nature. It's found in the seashell spirals. It's found in everything. You know what that's called? That's called the golden ratio. And then it hit me like a ton of bricks. I go, oh my God, all these news articles I've been seeing, everything that I watch, everything that I research, that the whole world doesn't see. But I do. Because I've been studying it my entire life. And I realize, I go, oh my gosh, Bitcoin, first cryptocurrency, the language that God spoke is how he created everything into existence. And we know that that number system is derived into something called the golden ratio. Bitcoin was the beginning cryptocurrency, and from Bitcoin, all of the other cryptocurrencies or tokens or whatever you want to call them, layer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, it doesn't matter what you want to call them. And by the way, for all the people who say, oh, things are moving so fast, let me just say, there's only about 30 actual layer 1s, which that means there's only about 30 actual coins. There's 200 layer 1s, but out of all of those that aren't scams, in my personal opinion, there's only about 30 that are legitimate. All of those other 19,900 and whatever coins are all tokens built on top of one of those 30 projects. Things are not moving fast, they're moving very slow. We have different layers, and we can get into that later. There isn't one thing about crypto that I don't know. I can tell you what's going to happen next year. I can tell you what's going to happen in 2025 because I've mapped it out. The reasoning as to why and the years, and I can show proof backed with actual facts. No speculation. I hate speculation. I want proof. And so, getting into Mount Sinai, I looked up Mount Sinai. If you look up Mount Sinai on Google, you find something. Mount Sinai is shaped in a cone. And it's a cone inside of a cone inside of a cone, and it actually makes the mountain forms a pyramid. Well, if you've studied pyramids and you've gone down that rabbit hole, you would have ended up finding out about energy and all kinds of other things that I'm not going to get into here, because I just think that if the things like that were meant to come out, they would have already come out, so that's not my place. So I just, hey, I'm excited about the blockchain, and we'll go with that. But what I found out about, and this goes back to the beginning with the remote viewing, is when I went to Mount Sinai, I've looked this up a long time ago, but Mount Sinai and the block, the stone that was used there, and how it's formed on the ground. And the ground, if you know how the earth works, and you have a North Pole and you have the South Pole, and then the further you get away from the equator, you don't see the Aurora Boreal, which is actually in Arctic and Antarctic. As you get further away from the two highest peaks, which is North and South Poles, you can't see the northern lights and southern lights, but those lights are still, they encompass the entire globe. That's called the Earth's magnetic field. And that magnetic field, if you know different alignments with astronomy, which I've also studied for quite a while, I'm not the best, but in about a week or two, I could tell you where the Earth's magnetic field is anywhere in the world, with almost, I can't say no effort, because it takes a lot of work, a lot of brain power, but yet I can't create a resume. Crazy. Mount Sinai, I saw that there is a ley line, and I know this because my dad was friends with a guy in college by the name of Bruce Cathy. He's all over YouTube. Bruce Cathy worked for the Air Force, and his partner Rod Mopin, which is still alive today. Bruce isn't, but Rod is. They created a system. They were, in a sense, they were kind of like the Agent Fox Mulder and Agent Scully of the X-Files, sort of. Their only job, they found out this mathematical code, which allowed them to show where the Earth's harmonic magnetic field is anywhere in the world at any time. So they created a computer system, because most people, it is, like crypto viewing had told me in the beginning, it is too difficult for people to understand. So they created a simplified version of that. My dad was friends with Bruce Cathy in college. They hung out, and they touched base a little bit here and there. They created this, which is a software you can put in your computer. You can't get it anymore. It's shut down. But every Air Force base that I found sits on one of these magnetic fields. I'm not going to go any further than that. But what intrigued me about Mount Sinai, which, by the way, all this is from the Bible and Torah. This isn't stuff that I made up. This isn't stuff that I invented when it has to do with anything religious or the ley lines. There's talk in the Bible about fiery chariots, which I've also had a tendency to throw out about speculation, I would say, regarding UFOs. But back in the day, way back when, people weren't modernized like we are today. They didn't know what that burning thing was up in the sky. So in the Bible, it's referred to in the book of Isaiah. No, it's Elijah. Book of Elijah talked about fiery chariot. Back then, that would make sense. Today, it doesn't make so much sense. Although because it's the Bible, and I haven't known exactly what to believe and what to go with. I wanted to switch to Judaism last year, and I spoke with rabbis about changing my name, and I still want to change my name because with what I know now about everything, like these ley lines, I was told in the beginning, I said, Ben, you can't talk about that. The owners of the world and the elite, which I'm told, they keep this secret. Well, it can't be too secret because the only way I learned about this was in the Bible. Now, I heard about stuff with my father and the things that had taken place with that. I don't use this. I ended up figuring out that taking science, like I talked about, with the practicality of the Bible and the Torah and the teachings, this all came from the Word. And so based off of the Word and a little modern day help from technology regarding Google, I saw this, and then because of what I had found out regarding the golden ratio from when I was younger, I realized Nikola Tesla was using the golden ratio. And I go, oh my God. So if you look at a compass and how mapping and surveying works, we'll find out that Greenwich, if you take a map of the whole world laid out, straight up and down, you have this X, kind of like a cross. That's a good starting point. But if you use the golden ratio on planet Earth, with that as a starting point, you would find how the natural layout of God's creation naturally formed on Earth and how things are the way that they are today and how things could have been a big bang, maybe when God came, a big bang, but because of the golden ratio, things can only fall in perfect perpetuity with the Word of God. Things can only fall in perfect alignment with the language of God, which we know, since God coded the universe, and that language, there's only one language and it can be found everywhere in nature, it's the golden ratio. It also talks about in the Bible, here, let me get this to you, because it gets even better. But I don't want to make stuff up, I don't like making up Bible verses, I want to have the actual facts, but I want to go back to this Torah, the Old Testament, also called the law. The law of the world is derived from the Torah and the Bible. And the Bible, for those of you that don't know, the Bible was created based off of the Torah, the Hebrew Bible. To me, it doesn't make much sense to study the Bible when I should just be going straight to the source, which is, Torah is made up of 5 books, and then we had the Dead Sea Scrolls. So that and my personal, where my heart is, my head, I still feel like I should probably be Jewish, so I'd probably say I'm a Christian Jew. But until you get baptized and you've literally changed your name legally, there's a few steps you have to do most people aren't willing to take. I'm willing to take because if the universe, see, everybody, all words have a meaning and all people's names have a meaning. My name is Benjamin Slider, and Benjamin means son of the right hand, and slider means to turn, it's on Google, you look it up, it's really sad, but to turn the volume up or down. I don't want to be turned up or down. So I'm trying to research and find a name that fits best for me, and the reason being, in my heart, for me, so I can be in alignment with God. This is personal from me, no one else. You can make fun or whatever, but I want to do something that is in alignment with the Lord, with God. There's lots of Lords. When I say Lord, don't twist my words and say, well, it's the Lord of this or that. No. So I don't know if I'll end up doing that, but if we don't have the right name in this world, do you think that maybe God and the universe, or his code, which is currently running the show, is the code, whether we're aware of it or not, it's still here, it still exists, it's all around us. God's code that he used in his language that he spoke. When Jesus talked about in the Bible, he goes out into the wilderness to pray. He gets away from all of the things of man, all of the man-made things. He goes away from all of that out into nature, which when you're in nature, all it is the golden ratio and you. Now, there's one more thing I wanted to get into, which is the most powerful thing that I've ever learned in the Bible, which gets into creating nothing into something from speaking the language of God, which once again, Bible, Torah, not mine. We'll get into that in a second. It's super powerful. This is how I'm able to do the things that I'm doing. This is how, people ask me this, I wish I had your ability. I wish I could do what you're doing. Once again, this isn't remote viewing. I could see how this could be too difficult, but I'm not a remote viewer. It never has sat right with me, ever. And I'm not knocking the guys that do it if they want to do it. That's them. But in Joshua, in the Bible, Joshua 1 verse 8, here's what it says. This book of the law shall not depart from your mouth. So what does that mean? Here's where it gets to be the most powerful thing you'll have ever heard, because I've never heard anyone anywhere ever teach this. Number one, I'll write this down and then I'll show you. Bear with me. Number one, speak the word. Go back to my scripture. Joshua 1 verse 8. But you shall meditate on it day and night. Meditate. Number 3. So that you may be careful to do according to all that is written in it, for then you will make your ways prosperous, and then you will have good success. So there's 3 things that are here. Meditate on it, and then take action. Now you're going to be baffled when you see this. This came from Joshua, and this is regarding money, this is regarding God, this is regarding the word from the Bible, which is a derivative from the Torah. The Torah was derived from the language that God spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai when he gave him the 10 Commandments. And in that language, being the golden ratio, which is the language spoken by God, the code that coded the entire universe. You mean to tell me that Bitcoin is coded with the language of God? And every single other one of these cryptocurrencies that's here today is coded because it was all derived from Bitcoin as the inception. It was the first, it was the granddaddy, it was the granddad of all of it. Brad Garlinghouse, if you aligned yourself and Ripple with these principles, the SEC wouldn't be able to touch you. Why? Because the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, the United States, says that we have right to religion. If every single other cryptocurrency out there did this, unless you were creating the backside of that as a federal court, the only way that you could overturn a private sector institute, foundation, or association, which is outside the public sector, is you'd have to prove that there's substantiative evil being committed. Well, we know that's not taking place. So, God's principles win. Joshua 1 verse 8, we speak the word. When you speak the word, you hear it. So when we have the Bible in front of us, and we speak what we are reading out loud, like I just did, that it's called doctrine in the Bible. When that doctrine goes into your ears, you think about it. And when you think about it, you get an emotion from that. So you speak the word, you meditate on it day and night, came from the scripture, and then we take action. So I want to show you something. I'll just say it because that's easier, but here's the little man here. When you speak, something comes out of your mouth, it goes into your head, into your ears, your head, you get this emotion, you get a feeling from that. You act from your heart at that point, which goes to your hand, and your hand is doing what? It's birthing this to the world. So I'm not smart enough to come up with this, but I am smart enough to figure some of this out, that if I align myself with the word of the principles of the Bible through the Torah, if I align myself with the thoughts of God, which Bible basic instruction before leaving earth, I don't want to leave earth right now, but if I align myself with this, God's thoughts, then eat, sleep, and breathe, all I do, and constantly I keep bringing up, I sound like a broken record, I'm sure, but I bring it up a lot, where I talk about religion, I talk about Jesus Christ, and it's not because I'm stuck on it, I've been on it, but I'll tell you what, people that want to only work their business twice a month, but they want to be paid every single day, that's not how it works. It's not how it works. You want to get paid every single day, then you need to be hustling and working every single day. And in my eyes, and in my heart, and the way I view things, that when I implement the principles that I've personally learned in the Bible, and this didn't happen overnight, it didn't happen last week, last month, this is taking years and years and years and years of various different studies. Like I said in the group, our grandparents used to be the baker, the babysitter, the mechanic, the electrician, the plumber, they did it all. And today we specialize in one area, and I'm not that way. I like to create things, I like to move forward, I like to do better, and I like to succeed. I like to win. I thought this would greatly help the entire world, the cryptocurrency community. I want to say here, Romans chapter 6, verse 17. But thanks to God that through you used to be slaves to sin, you have come to obey. Now, I'll stop right there, but used to be slaves to sin. You know, it's interesting. I was told by Crypto Viewing, the owner, you got to keep that secret. Oh, you can't talk about the ley line. You can't talk about UFO. Why? It all came from the Bible. 100%. Oh, you can't talk about these technologies. And in cryptos, guess what? I was here long before the big corporations were here. I was here long before most of the experts out there were here. And I thought it would be funny, to do. Obama in 2016 changed the law from first to invent to first to file. In the United States, I went to the USPTO and I filed the actual patent on Bitcoin. I let that patent go. It was a provisional patent. It was good for 1 year, and then it's expired. Nobody had done that. So for 1 year, there was 143 plus multi-billion-dollar companies that were all using this. I just thought it would be fun, and I wasn't even thinking about business or money perspective. I was like, why hasn't anybody done this? Well, I went on to a bunch of other patents. It's not to control or step on anybody's toes, because I believe blockchain it's a huge thing. So many people just look at it as a dollar value, like a stock. You know, if people knew, here's how you need to look at it. Well, if I buy an Amazon stock, Amazon, I only get the price value of that stock. That's like a security. But the way these most of them work, is that they're encrypted, they're not hackable. Anytime anybody's ever heard about it being hacked, it's because an exchange owner gave out what's called a private key, which is the password to get into that wallet. They gave that out to an employee, and the employee felt like they were underpaid, so they went back and they stole the money from the exchange. That's a hack. But Bitcoin and a Bitcoin wallet has never been hacked. Ever. No crypto has ever truly been hacked. And if they say there's something that's been hacked behind the scenes, I think there might have been one, but that wasn't because it was blockchain. They were trying to do things in a centralized way. When I give my ID to the bank and then somebody steals my identification from the computer of the bank, that's because it was centralized. They didn't use blockchain. If they'd used blockchain, if they'd used the principles if they'd have used the principles that were given to us, this is the problem with everything. If people used the actual principles that we actually had to use to live in our life, things would be so great. If you aligned yourself with the Word of God, and you were doing this daily, this is why I sound like a broken record, but if you're doing it all of the time, then the revelation just keeps coming and coming and coming. That's why I brought up the job. You can't expect to work twice a month and get paid every single day. You got to be at it every single day. There's so many times where there's so many songs out there that I hear on the radio where they're talking about sex and drugs. And there's one, I'm not going to say the name out of respect. I don't know why, but a guy just blew somebody's brains out on a music video. And it's got like 500 million views. That's completely okay to talk about. But if I want to talk about anything that's mine, and 100% of everything that I put out in my group and I put out on my channel is 100%, not 90, not 98, but 100% of everything that I do in my life, in one way or another is related to Bible scripture, let's say 99% to be safe, because I'm not perfect. I'm not even trying to be perfect, but I do make mistakes. But man, and I have been scrutinized, I've been hacked, I've been put down. I failed. Christians and Cryptocurrency is back. I'll leave the link for the invite to that group down below if you guys are really interested. Let me get back to this. But thanks be to God that though you used to be slaves to sin, which is why I brought up all those music videos, that's what you're being indoctrinated with in your ears. And this is significant because it specifically relates to what I just told you about what you speak. It's what you hear. You get the emotion in your heart, and that's what you give to the world. And when the world is pitching nothing but a bunch of the enemy, that's what society is giving to the world, and the world doesn't even know that we're doing it. Think about that. Let that roll around. Because people don't think. I'm not special. I don't have a special ability. I've worked. I studied, I pray, and a lot of weeks, even now, I still go out and I break down crying. At this point, I'm almost like, well, why does it matter? This is why I worked for 3 or 4 days to be able to put all this together to bring it to you guys. I'm almost like, what does it matter? I've been stripped of my Telegram. I keep getting hacked today. I have no idea who's doing it. I'm not a big company where I go to the FBI and they'd actually pay attention to me. I'm a guy with 2 kids that just won 50-50 custody in court. I'm the happiest man in the world about that. But if I can't take the principles from the Holy Spirit through God in this Bible and pitch that to the world and be successful, what's the point? So why am I putting this out? All of the secrets. The closest distance between point A and point B, we believe, is getting in a car, a bus, a train, subway, and you drive from point A to point B. If you look at science and how the world actually works and astronomy and when things line up on the right day at the right time, the right hour, when the moon goes across the Atlantic Ocean with its shadow that it casts, and it goes up and down around the world, that shadow, when it casts at the right time, at the right day, at the right hour over the Atlantic Ocean, airplanes that just happen to be, or boats, that's called Bermuda Triangle, but at just the right time, they just happen to disappear 28 million miles out into the middle of space. Like that. Now, this is all in the Bible, 100%. But once again, I don't know if it's because the public doesn't really know this. Nobody's actually thought enough to put it together and match it together with what's actually here. Or is it truly being kept secret? I would probably say it's safe to say that a lot of it's probably, they're not ready. Not ready. But I think it's also safe to say that everything that I'm talking about, I can back up 100% with Bible scripture or the Bible, the 5 books through the Torah. The main purpose of this video was to show, because people don't know, and they don't know quantum computing, they don't have any clue, God's word that he spoke to Moses. Yes, it was a language, but it was made up of the golden ratio that he coded of ones and zeros. So he starts with the numbers, Then it's to the Hebrew, is what the whole world had spoke at one point. And then that Alpha Tav, which is the Hebrew language, or the Hebrew Torah, Alpha Tav. English, it's alphabet. That's not a coincidence, but that's where it came from. So you have three different pieces, is where it derived from. And from numbers, prior to that, was light and sound, which is a whole nother ball game. I don't think people on earth could even conceive if we talked about it. See if I can end this for you guys. There's a few other pieces. Deuteronomy 6. Now these are the commandments. Wait, go back. Here we go. But thanks be to God that though you used to be slaves in sin, which is you putting all that doctrine in your head, but now we have the principles of the Bible that we can align ourselves with the golden ratio in our daily lives. You have come to obey from the heart pattern of teaching that has now claimed your allegiance. It's powerful because it's true. Deuteronomy 6. It's the King James Version, by the way. Now these are the commandments, the statutes, and the judgments which your Lord your God commanded to teach you, that ye might do them in the land whither ye go to possess it. And this is where he commanded that future generations teach this to their sons and their sons and their sons, and yet we're lost. I think if people stop paying attention to the music videos and all of the bad that's actually out there, because anything, if God is for us, then who could be against us? Yeah, who? I am the Alpha Tav. Most people in the Jewish faith are well aware of that. Romans 6, verse 17. But God be thanked that ye were the servants of sin, but ye have obeyed from the heart and the doctrine, right here, which was delivered to you. Remember, I don't make up any of this. It all comes from Scripture. It depends on what book is being talked about. So that's important. Isaiah 55, 8 through 9. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. Wow. You mean to tell me if we made our thoughts in alignment with God's thoughts, and we have God's thoughts because they're right here in the book, 2 of them, that if, let me read this, declares that the Lord, as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. And that screams to me that if we align ourselves with the language and the word, you don't have to speak the language, but if you align yourselves with the teachings of God himself, then we have no choice but to succeed in all things that we do. This is how I do the things that I do. This is how I get the research that I get. When I see the numbers out in society or in the news or in public, it's taken me years and years and years, and a lot of my life I was looking at this like when I was between like 4 and 9 years old. I was watching Math Magic Land, which this isn't magic. These are the principles in the Bible. When you tithe and you give 10%, people say, well, if you give me money, then I'll get money because I gave you money. Maybe, but the principles of the Bible, you give an offering at church, it doesn't have to be at church, it could be anywhere, somebody that actually is in need. I mean, when you do it through your heart rather than something you're looking for in return, that's when the blessings pour in. That's my experience. You do it from the heart and you're not looking for the return. That's when the blessings come in. Maybe I should have done this video a long time ago. I didn't exactly know how. And I've been scared. I'm still scared. I'm scared to death because the things I talk about, if you want to, closest distance between point A and point B is not a straight line. If you look at science, the Aurora Boreal and the golden ratio, which plots us the magnetic ley lines, by the way, the only way you can bend physical matter is using a magnetic field. This should be common sense stuff, really. We're in the 21st, the year 2022. Not 22nd. Last thing I'm going to say If you can see this. No, maybe. Constitution of the United States. First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or the press, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. When I saw this, and I had the big aha moment, and I go, oh. And I'm not talking about deja vu, I'm talking about all kinds of areas I've studied my entire life. When I did see it and I had the aha moment, it wasn't a deja vu, and I don't do that anymore, and I am not a remote viewer. John 4 verse 1. And I guess read one more thing to you so that it is just crystal clear. Because these are things people don't know. There we go. Deuteronomy 18:9 states, when you enter the land of the Lord your God is giving you, do not learn to imitate the detestable ways of the nations there. Let no one be found among you who practices divinations or sorcery, interprets omens, engages in witchcraft or casts spells, or who is a medium or spirit, or who consults the dead. Anyone who does these things is detestable to the Lord. And because these things are detestable practices of the Lord, your God will drive out those nations before you. To say, let's see here. Here's one. John 1:47, verse 47 through 39. But when Jesus' knowledge of Nathanael a sign of Jesus' great mind power? No. It was a demonstration of his divine nature, as Nathanael himself readily recognized, saying, Rabbi, you are the Son of God, and you are the King of Israel. Verse 49. Paranormal activities like ESP, clairvoyance, remote viewing, etc. are a counterfeit of God's work, empowered by the enemy of our souls in an attempt to deceive. 1 John 4 verse 1 gives this timely advice. Dear friends, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God, because many false prophets have gone out into the world. Where do you think I stand? I am a Christian Jew, wholeheartedly, in my head and my heart. I serve only one God, Jesus Christ, which God came in the form as a man, which I believe. I know the Jews would argue. They both have truth. I don't know why they're separated. I know why, but it doesn't make sense. There shouldn't be fighting or going against for churchianity. It's not about churchianity, which is a word I just made up, but churchianity. We're not teaching church, we're teaching the teachings. That's what matters. Following our heart, what matters. Using the actual word. I am slightly bothered with other things. This is getting into be a long video. It's been almost an hour. I don't want to run this out. There's so many topics we go into with so many different things and technologies and areas, like things that I want to go on for over and over and over and over and over. I'm scared something like this with some of the things that I've talked about, even though it's openly public to everybody and available in any Bible anywhere in the world. Or Torah, most of Torah, unless you speak Hebrew, you can't really read it. Well, how many people actually speak Hebrew? Probably not as many as people who speak English or Mandarin or whatever else. So chances of them ever finding out any of this is slim to none. I have. But it's also taken me now, I'm almost 37 years old. And since I was about 15, it's a long time. I'm not putting anybody else down. That's not what it's about. For me in this video was blockchain, but I have lost everything, just about. My father passed away. I got a little inheritance money last year. I've always tried to make a company and do better and better and better and better. And in this last 4 years of being censored and put down and shunned and scrutinized, made fun of, I'm at the end of the road. I wanted to quit. I've been crying most of the week, the last few days when I shut down my Telegram. I don't know what else to do. If things aren't growing, you're not moving forward, there's no point in moving forward. Well, that's not because I'm not moving forward and growing. It's because someone's screwing with our Telegram. Someone is censoring my YouTube. God gave me all of the tools I need to succeed and survive my whole life. I've been doing great. Most of it. So I have to end it and say this: if God is for us, who could be against us? God promises protection. Sometimes when we can't do the things we need to do for ourselves, that's when you call on Him. But if you use the doctrine, the principles that I just taught you in this, you're doing it in alignment with the Creator of this universe. Thanks, guys.